How do you keep your hope while you wait for the word that God is giving you to come to pass? I want to go to Romans chapter 4. Romans chapter 4, verse 18. Against all hope, Abraham, in hope, believed and so became the father of many nations. Just as it had been said to him, so shall your offspring be. 19. Without weakening in his faith, he faced the fact that his body was as good as dead since he was about 100 years old. That's old. And that Sarah's womb was also dead. Yet he did not waver through unbelief regarding the promise of God, but was strengthened in his faith and gave God glory, being fully persuaded that God had the power to do what he had promised. Against all hope, Abraham in hope. That's a little interesting. Against all hope, Abraham in hope. Man, I have this love-hate relationship with Instagram and social media in general. I got this love-hate relationship with it because although it can be very inspiring and motivating, at times it can also be frustrating. Because you're like, man, wait a second. Why don't I have, or why can't I do what they can do? And I started thinking, Dalen, like, oftentimes what we see on Instagram or what we see in social media is a split second when we think it's there always. Oh, come on, man. They smiled and looked happy for a split second. And that's pretty easy. It's a little harder to be smiling and happy always. And oftentimes in social media, we confuse their always with their split second. But I started thinking, like, man, that's so frustrating to try to keep up with someone based off of a split second. And then we end up doing this, we end up measuring where we are with where they are. We're measuring our current calling with someone else's chapter. It's not a competition, it's a calling. But what you got to understand is this, though, is that we can't get caught up, Jeff, in measuring where people are with where we are. See, Apostle Paul was writing about Abraham. And as he's writing about Abraham, look at verse 19. He says, without weakening in his faith. If you go down a little bit further, he says, did not waver through unbelief. Now, here's what I love about the Bible is because if you read this out of context, you would think, man, Abraham was just awesome. And he was. And Abraham, never, anybody know someone who's never appears to be weak? Yeah, how the heck do you do that? Yeah, irked my nerves too. When you're supposed to be mad and upset and they just like, oh, hi, bless the Lord. I'm like, nah, dog, chill out. I wonder, though, what Abraham would have said of this passage. Because what's great about the Bible is that we know Abraham's story. You see, Apostle Paul wrote a split-second moment. And so Abraham got this great word from God. Man, I'm going to bless you. You're going to be the father of many nations. He said, whoa! I'd stop everything. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's make this thing happen. Right? Because Apostle Paul said that the great Abraham never wavered in his faith. He never wavered in his faith. His faith never weakened. Anybody here can say that? Yeah, me either. The word went forth, and the decade has passed since the word that God gave him has come to pass. And here's what I've learned. When you associate, come on, man, that your destiny with a deadline, hope begins to fade. You see, but this deadline never came from God. It was man-made. And so now, over a decade later, God has come and approached Abraham, and he says, look, I'm about to give you a great reward. And most of us, see, if this wasn't 10 years from now, this was just 10 days later, we'll be very excited. But his response is, what can you give me? What can you give me since I still remain childless? Abraham never weakened in his faith. But hold on. God just said, I'm going to give you a great reward. What can you give me? I still remain childless. His hope is fading. I've discovered this, Dalen. God gives a word. Time passes. Hope fades. God gives a word. Time passes. Hope fades. Apostle Paul said this boy never weakened in his faith. And now you got Abraham, who is at this point now where he's like, we still Abram at this point. You got Abram at this point like, man, God, I ain't trying to hear none of that. I trusted you. Anyone been there? I trusted you. I believe what you said. But wait a minute. I'm confused. Because we read Romans 4, and he says that Abraham never wavered in his faith. And in 3 chapters, I already showed you he lied, he got sarcastic, he reasoned, and now he's taking stuff into his own hands. He faced the facts, but he didn't focus on them. See, it's some facts that you just got to face. Okay, you did lose your job. I ain't got to focus on that. It's a fact. Okay, I ain't qualified. Okay, I do mess up. Okay, I have sinned. Okay, I have lied. Okay, I have laughed God out. Okay, I have tried to take stuff into my own hand. Look, I can face the facts, but I ain't got to focus on them. Okay, Nelson, what you mean you don't got to focus on it? Because the Bible says that I'm supposed to walk by, faith and not by sight. Shahide. Yeah, see? Because when I walk by sight, what I'm saying is that I know what I see. And I'll let that ruin me. But when I walk by faith, I know what I see, but I can rise above it. I don't got to focus on it. How do you keep your hope while you wait? You don't focus on the facts. You focus on the word. God gave you a word. That's what you focus on. You don't focus on everything that disqualifies you. You focus on the one that called you.